in the heart of a bustling metropolis, where skyscrapers pierced the sky like indifferent giants and the roar of engines drowned out the whispers of nature, a tiny cry shattered the chaos. It was the desperate chirp of a mother sparrow, her wings fluttering wildly over a storm drain on the edge of a 6-lane highway. Below her, in the dark, grimy depths, 2 fledglings huddled together, their feathers matted with rainwater from the previous night's downpour. They were too young to fly, too fragile to survive the fall that had trapped them there. The mother's eyes, wide with terror, scanned the indifferent world above, cars zooming by, horns blaring, people lost in their own hurried lives. But her cry, raw and piercing, was a plea that no soul could ignore forever. Elena Rodriguez gripped the steering wheel of her old sedan, her mind a whirlwind of worries. At 42, she was a single mother juggling 2 jobs of barista by day and a cleaner by night, just to keep the lights on for her daughter Mia, who was waiting at home with a fever. Traffic was at a standstill, as usual, on this cursed stretch of road during rush hour. Elena sighed, glancing at her phone. 5:47 p.m. Late again. That's when she heard it, the frantic chirping. At first, she thought it was her imagination, a trick of the exhaust fumes and fatigue. But no, there it was again, insistent, heartbreaking. She rolled down her window, and her eyes locked onto the sparrow hovering desperately above the drain. "Oh no," Elena whispered, her heart clenching. She had always been sensitive to the small things in life, the overlooked pains. As a child in her village back in Mexico, she remembered rescuing a kitten from a well, the way its tiny mews had tugged at her soul. Now, here in this cold city, that same pull stirred within her. But what could she do? Cars were inching forward, and the light ahead turned green. Honks erupted like angry thunder. Still, she couldn't move. Her foot hovered over the gas pedal, frozen by the mother's unrelenting cries. Beside her lane, Marcus Thompson sat in his sleek SUV, blasting hip-hop to drown out the monotony of his corporate grind. A 8-year-old software engineer, he was all about efficiency deadlines, algorithms, the next promotion. Kindness? That was for weekends, if he had time. But the chirping cut through his music like a glitch in the system. He lowered the volume, peering out. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, spotting the bird. At first, he dismissed it nature's problem, not his. Yet, as the sparrow dove repeatedly toward the drain, her wings brushing the asphalt, something shifted. Memories flooded back. His own mother, battling cancer alone while he was off at college, too busy to visit. Her quiet pleas for help over the phone, ignored until it was too late. Guilt twisted in his gut like a knot. He couldn't just drive away. Traffic surged forward, but Elena didn't budge. Her car stalled the flow, and horns blared furiously. Marcus, 2 cars back, leaned out his window. "Hey, move it," he shouted. But then he saw her pointing frantically at the drain. Curiosity piqued. He killed his engine and stepped out, his polished shoes crunching on gravel. Others followed suit, a ripple of confusion spreading through the jammed vehicles. An elderly man named Mr. Patel, a retired teacher from India, hobbled out of his minivan with a cane, his wise eyes narrowing at the scene. A young college student, Lila, on her scooter, zipped to the shoulder and parked, her backpack slung over one shoulder. And then there was Jamal, a delivery driver in his beat-up truck, wiping sweat from his brow after a 12-hour shift. The mother sparrow's cries grew more frantic, her body trembling as she perched on the drain's edge, peering into the abyss. The fledglings below cheeped weakly, their beaks open in hunger and fear, the cold water seeping around them. Elena approached first, kneeling on the hot pavement despite the blaring horns. "They're stuck down there," she called out, her voice cracking with emotion. "2 baby birds! We have to help them!" Marcus joined her, peering into the drain. The drop was about 4 feet. The grate rusted and slick. "This is crazy," he said, but his tone softened as he saw the tiny form shivering. "How do we even get them out?" "Mr. Patel shuffled closer, his face etched with concern. "In my village, we once saved a calf from a pit. It takes a community," he said gently, his accent warm like forgotten tea. Lila pulled out her phone, but instead of calling for help, she started filming, then thought better and pocketed it. "We need something to reach them," she suggested, her youthful energy sparking ideas. Jamal, ever practical, rummaged in his truck and produced a long-handled net from his deliveries. a tool for catching wayward packages. "This might work," he grunted, handing it over. The group huddled, strangers united by this unexpected crisis. But as they lowered the net, and twist unfolded, one fledgling hopped eagerly toward it, its tiny claws grasping the mesh. They pulled it up gently, and Elena cradled it in her hands, its heart beating like a frantic drum against her palm. Tears welled in her eyes. "You're safe, little one," she whispered, her voice thick with relief. But the second fledgling, oh, the heartache. It was weaker, its wing bent at an odd angle. Perhaps injured in the fall, it huddled in the corner, too scared to move. As water levels rose from a distant leak, the mother sparrow swooped low, her cries now a mournful wail that pierced every heart present. Cars behind them revved impatiently. But Marcus stepped into the road, waving his arms. "Stop! There's lives at stake here," he yelled, his voice booming with newfound conviction. To everyone's surprise, the traffic halted not just one lane, but all. Drivers poked heads out, murmuring. Then, joining the spectacle, a burly trucker named Hank climbed down from his rig, his tattooed arms flexing as he offered his flashlight. "Shine it down there," he barked, but his eyes softened at the sight. The group worked feverishly. Lila suggested using a makeshift ramp, a cardboard box from Jamal's truck, flattened and lowered with string. But the fledgling wouldn't budge, its fear paralyzing it. Time ticked on. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows. Elena's phone buzzed Mia, wondering where she was. Guilt gnawed at her, but she couldn't leave. "We have to get it out," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Mr. Patel knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Patience, child. Kindness is never rushed." Then came the unexpected twist that tested their resolve. A sudden gust of wind whipped through the highway, carrying debris and rattling the grate. The fledgling startled, slipping further into the water. Gasps echoed. "No!" Lila cried, her hands flying to her mouth. Marcus, without thinking, yanked off the grate, his muscles straining, veins bulging as adrenaline surged through him. The metal groaned and gave way. Jamal lowered himself partway into the drain, his broad shoulders barely fitting, the stench of sewage assaulting his senses. "Come on, little guy," he coaxed, his voice uncharacteristically tender, like the father he hoped to be one day. The climax hit like a wave of raw emotion. As Jamal's fingers brushed the fledgling's feathers, a car from the opposite direction swerved too close, its driver distracted by the commotion. Horns screamed, tires screeched, but Hank the trucker leaped forward, slamming his palm on the hood to stop it inches from the group. The air froze. Hearts pounded in unison. Jamal emerged triumphant, the second fledgling cupped in his hands, its body limp but breathing. The mother sparrow landed nearby, her cries turning to soft coos of gratitude. Elena took the injured one, wrapping it gently in her scarf, while Lila fetched water from her bottle to drip into their beaks. Tears streamed down faces Elena's from overwhelming relief, Marcus's from the release of buried guilt, Mr. Patel's from the beauty of human connection. Strangers hugged, laughed through sobs, as traffic slowly resumed around them. The fledglings, reunited with their mother on a nearby bush, chirped weakly but alive. Elena placed them carefully, watching as the sparrow nuzzled them, her eyes meeting Elena's in what felt like silent thanks. As the group dispersed, changed forever, Marcus turned to Elena. "I almost drove away," he admitted, his voice choked. "But seeing you stop, it reminded me we're all connected." Mr. Patel nodded sagely. "In a world of rush, a single cry can halt empires. Kindness is the true power." Elena drove home that evening, the warmth in her chest eclipsing her exhaustion. Mia greeted her with a hug, and as she recounted the story, her daughter's eyes widened with wonder. Across the city, Marcus called his estranged sister, vowing to mend old wounds. Lila posted the tale online, not for likes, but to inspire. Jamal dreamed of his future family, softer now. Hank shared beers with buddies, boasting not of miles driven, but lives saved. And Mr. Patel sat in his quiet home, smiling at the memory. In the end, it wasn't just two tiny lives rescued that day, it was the spark of humanity reignited in weary souls. For in stopping for the smallest among us, we rediscover our own capacity for selflessness, proving that even in the roar of indifference, A cry for help can unite strangers into saviors. Kindness, after all, is the bridge that mends the world's broken wings, one compassionate act at a time.